All right, let's get to it and create our file cacher. So back to where we were. I mean, you could do this in an empty scene if you want. So basically, you could go ahead and use this file cache node here. Maybe go ahead and change this and save it as a different preset. That would be enough. And if you're fine with that, go ahead, skip this lesson. This is just about creating a cacher HDA, which I think gives a bit more flexibility in terms of how we want to work. So if you have your own system set up, you already have your caching system that is working, just feel free, skip this part. For those that are interested in creating HDAs, we're going to be doing a bit of Python as well. Just some basic, simple stuff. So don't get afraid. It's not going to get too complicated. I will try and explain it. And so we're just going to create our simple little file caching node that we're going to be using. It also might be interesting to see how to create HDAs and how to also manage them. So let's get started. First down, let's drop a subnetwork. So this is going to be our cacher. And let's dive inside. Just quickly drop down ML, connect this to the first input. So basically everything that's coming in, and let's just call this in. And then here we create a wrap geometry output, and then call this our render. So render, and then let's drop down a file node and call this our loader. And then let's drop a out node. And so this is basically everything that is going to go out. So one thing that we do want to change here, missing frame, is no geometry, so it doesn't complain when you drop this down there or nothing is loading. And then let's jump to the top and then start creating some parameters. So first of all, let's just hide these here. Going pretty quick here. So select your node, go to the top right gear menu here, and then edit parameter interface, and then we can start dropping stuff in here. So let's start with our frame range. Let's just drop this here, and then what we want to render. So this, I'm just gonna start dragging and dropping these paths here, and then let's add the load type here, the display packed as, and then once we change this to backdist primitive display as, and this is important because we are going to be using these caches for rendering, and so we want to have these options available as well. So if we dive up and then hit apply, we already have our basic settings here. Just going to create a simple folder structure for this here. So this is going to be our settings tab, and then we change this to simple, because if we just leave it like that, it's just going to be regular tabs. I just use this for, I don't know, for making it look a bit more beautiful. And then inside here, I'm gonna have two folders again, one for the right, and this is going to be a simple tab as well. And we're going to drop all this inside here, and then create another folder, get called read, and then let's drop all the stuff that we use for reading and geometry down there, and change this folder type to simple as well. All right, then we have two things that are missing: the path that we're reading from and the path that we're writing to. So we're going to say operator path, drop one in here into the right folder, and then this is going to be called our right. and that's clashing with this one here. So this is going to be a write folder, and then this is going to be our read folder, and now we can call this write. And then let's have another one. So I wonder if we can just duplicate this one and then drop it down here, and then call this one read. All right. Another thing that we do want to add is basically our version. So this is also going to be, it's going to be an integer. So let's pop this one over here and then put it under the file here. So just drop it onto the folder and then call this version. This is going to be range from 1, and then just lock, so you're not going to go into negative versions. And then the default is going to be 1. Apply. Yeah, the other thing that we do want to add, of course, is our save to disk. So basically, I'm going to take save to disk, drag it on top here, and then save to disk in background, drag it there, hit apply, and then we should have them up here. The only thing that we do want to have is them sit next to each other, like inside here, they're just sitting next to each other. And then, so we take the second one and then say horizontally join to next. Oh no, I think we have to do this to the first one, and then apply. Yep, and then they're sitting next to each other. Let me just switch this around because I'm used to having it the other way around. So like this. Yep, perfect. The other thing that we do want to add is a checkbox. So if we want to cache a single frame. So for example, we're going to be caching animations, sources, whatever. Sometimes we do have something static that is not moving, and we want to have the ability to cache just one frame. I mean, we could just set render current frame, but then it's going to add the frame number in there. So we're just going to add a toggle here under after the render, where's it, render frame range. We're going to say this is going to be single frame, hit apply, and then on the valid frame range we're going to say horizontally join next parameter, so it just jumps over to the side here. And what we want to do is we want to make sure that if we change this here to current frame, that we have the option available, and if we change this to render frame range, that it's not available. So if we have a look here on our toggle, we have here this option disable when, and so we can say, so if our t range, which is basically this parameter, so if the t range is not equals to off, I'll show you in a minute why, then disable it. So if we set this to current frame, now it's on. And if we set it to something else, it's going to be not available. And something that we want to do is once we tick this box, that we cannot accidentally jump over here, because then it's going to be still on the single frame. It's just going to be disabled. But we're going to be basically thinking we're writing out the full range, but we're still rendering single frame. And that's why basically I want to, if we tick this box, disable this one here. So if we go here to our valid frame range, and then if we say here, it's the same syntax. So disable when single frame. So this is basically referencing our parameter here. If that is equals to 1, so basically if it's on, if our single frame is on, then disable this one here. So now you can see, if we uncheck it, we're just rendering the current frame. So example, if you would just want to test out one frame, but still keep it with the frame padding, then we leave it like this. Or if we want to render a single frame, then we just tick this and it removes basically, I mean, we're going to set that up later, but it will remove the $F and just write out a normal file. All right, so that's that. Now the next thing that we're going to have a look at is setting up our path. And there's multiple ways you can do this. The way that we're going to be doing it is just setting up additional parameters that are going to be hidden in the final one, but are going to be visible now while we're doing this. So we're basically going to be creating our paths down here and then just referencing them up here. So if we have a look at what we need, so basically we will have two path attributes. So here, just copy this one here, drag it to the very bottom. Oops. And then we're going to call this our create path single frame. So there's going to be path single, and then we're going to have the same, just copy and paste this one, and this is going to be our path frames. And then we're going to have one that is another one that is just creating our normal path. So here, just call this create path. Then now we have these here, and then we could just reference them up there. Another thing that I want to add is basically a place to grab the name of this node here, because if we would call this, for example, cacher smoke underscore version 1, and we want, well, without the version, because we do have the version up here. So just cacher smoke. We want to have an option to basically change this, but not necessarily changing the name of the node. So we're just going to add a place where to add that. So we're just going to look for a string attribute here, string, and then add this under our, I think we just added under our version. So just drop it onto the right folder. And then this is going to be naming, and then the default is going to be $OS, and then we can append to that whatever we want. The only thing that we have to do, so for example here, now it's set to $OS, so if I middle mouse on this, it's called cacher smoke, which is fine. But for example, if I want to say, I don't know, this is going to be cacher smoke underscore test, so I just want to do a quick test, it's not going to evaluate. So what we want to do is force this to evaluate. So we just add these two backticks to the $OS, and now this evaluates correctly. So we can just append stuff here, and we just want to set this as a default. So we're just going to grab this, paste it in here, apply, and now if we middle mouse click on here, control middle mouse click, it resets to default, or just go here to where is it? Revert to defaults, control middle mouse. Then it's back to what we set it here. So basically when we drop down the node, just going to grab the name of the node. But if we, for example, just want to add to it, like, I don't know, test this, then it would just add that. Or for example, if you would be wedging, you could just add like your $wedge or whatever. After we've set up that, we can start to set up our file path. So we're going to go for $job, and then after that /bgo, which is basically a directory where we're going to be caching our stuff. And then what we want to add in here is also the name of the network it's inside. So basically this geometry node here, since if we have this inside of another container and we're just using the name of this node and we have the exact same node, it's just gonna overwrite it. So we want to incorporate the name of the network it's inside. So the code or the expression for this is another op expression operator. So we say operator name, and then we just go up one level and then take the name of that node. And now if we middle mouse on this, we should have now, it's going to, because this $job is taking us to the path of our project, which in my case lives under the folder projects, then the breach, which is, so all this is $job, then bgo/simpillar 01, which I'm not sure why it's, because we set this to simpillar 01, and then slash, we could take our naming, so copy and paste relative reference, and then it's taking our naming, and then inside here, so it's creating a folder. So I gotta make this a bit bigger because it's getting longer. So inside our BGO folder, I'm gonna just remove $job here in the front. So here we have BGO simpillar 01, which is the folder we're inside, and then the name of the naming here. So if we add here something for test, just going to add that to there. And then from there, we want to take the version. So basically copy parameter, paste relative reference, and then slash. So now we got the version in there as well. The only thing that I do want to add is basically a V. And so if we say V, we would have V1, but I also want to add like some zeros. So for example, if we're over the version 10, it's not gonna, like, there's not gonna be a jump. So just there's an expression for that called pad 0, and then basically here it specifies what to do. So the first number is how many zeros you want to add, and then the second one is the number. So for example, the number is our version, and then the number of paddings, zeros that we want to have is 3. So 3, comma, and then the version, and then just close. And then this should basically give version 001. And then if we up this, it's going to update, and then we can go beyond that, whatever. All right, and then the last part is going to be again our naming. So copy this here, paste relative reference, and then we have our naming back again, and then we add our what is it, $F4, and then .bgo.sc. I think we forgot a here dot, and now we should have the name. So let's just remove this 01 because that's a bit confusing. So there's the name, which is cache smoke, and then the frame number, and we're just having the version in one place. So if you want to update a cache, for example, and we're loading it manually, we don't have to update this at different places. There's just one place where the version is being called, and this is inside here. So basically, if we would open up the folder structure for this, we would have basically our container. Inside the container, we have the different caches, like if you have multiple caches, and then inside there we have the version. So this will continue to grow as we progress, and then in there is the sequence. So it's just easier to manage. And then in the beginning, let's add our $job slash, and then we should be good to go. Now this is the one with the frame padding. So we just remove this, add this to our frames list here, and we're just taking the same, putting it into path single, and then removing that one there. And so what we're going to be doing inside our path attribute here is going to be checking if we're using single frame or not, and then add take this or this path. So super simple expression. First, what we want to do is we want to set these to be our standard default. So for the create path single, let's just add this as a default, apply, and then here take this one, add this one as a default here, apply, and now it's graying out, so it's showing it's the default. And then for the path here, we're going to say expressions, and then edit string, and then we're going to start adding a bit of Python code because it's just easier to read. So first we want to import the Houdini object model, so HOU. Also what we want to do is change the expression language to where is it? All right, so what I just figured is we want to change this to Python, but the thing is I used the wrong wrong type. So this is operator path, and so what we want to do is take all our operator paths that were supposed to be file paths and change this to be a what is it? File. I think it's just regular file. And then let's hit apply. Yep, and this should be now we can right click expressions. Yeah, and then middle mouse click on it. If we set it to here, channels to be Python, and then reset to default, now it should be Python. So now we can go back and expression, edit expression, and then import Houdini object model, and then we can specify basically our node that we're working on. So this cacher node, and it's not always going to be named the same, so that's why we have to specify something that is procedural. So just call this node is equals to, and then call the Houdini object model, and then dot pwd, which is for the, here I think you can see, if called, it returns the node that it's that is containing the parameter, so basically itself. And then we want to say our single frame is equals to the node, so basically we specified that here, the node dot parm, which is basically just grabbing the parameter, and then we say which parameter do we want to get, and we want to get the parameter. If we hover over it, in this case it is create path single, so create path single, close, and then dot eval, which is basically just evaluating this parameter here. Like here we could say, I don't know, set or whatever, and then it would change to that. But in this case, we just want to grab that parameter. And then we have the same thing for our multi-frames or whatever. And then this would be create path underscore, what do we call it? Create path frames. And then just evaluate that. The other thing that we want to get is to check here, our parameter here, is this checked or not? So we want to evaluate that one as well. So basically this is going to be, we'll call this single, well, already call this single frame. So let's call this cache single, and then evaluate our single underscore frame. I think that's what it's called. If we hover over it, single frame, yep. And then what we want to do is simple if statement. So if our cache single is equals to 1, so whoops, 1, then basically we want to return our single frame. So if this is on, we want to return our single frame, and else it's got to be a multi-frame, so we will return our multi-frames. And I think this should be it. So now if we have a look here, it's evaluating our path. Basically, it's also taking into account the frame number, but that doesn't matter because it will change once we scrub through the time. So you see here, this updates. So that's fine. Then we accept this. And now what we can do is take this evaluated path, copy, and then here, paste relative reference, and then here, paste relative reference. And the reason why we have this separated is, for example, if you want to load in an older version, but not like change this here, you can just so evaluate this and then just paste in a different path here. So that's the main reason why we're doing that. Yeah, I think just to make this a bit more easy to read, just gonna change this to Python as well. So let's just go here to our, where is it, right, change this to Python, go down here to our read, change this to Python, hit apply, and let's remove this here, middle mouse to default. So what we want to do there is, let's start with our read. So expressions, edit expression. So let's just import, or let's just add I think this should work, I think. Houdini object model, PWD for getting yourself basically, and then the parameter. So basically what we did before, and then which parameter do we want to evaluate? We want to get the path. So basically create path, and then dot eval. So evaluate that, and then if you hit apply, now we see is it's just a bit nicer instead of seeing and like have to middle mouse click onto it, and you can like just copy that and paste it somewhere else if you want. And then let's just do the same thing for the top part here. So paste that in there. There we go. Oops. Edit string, expression, edit expression. Let's just remove these quotes here and apply. And now it should, evaluate. Now what we want to do is take this expression here and set this as the default, apply, and then the read part, add this one as well, apply, and now this one is the default. Same for this one here, copy this entire thing and then path create, apply, and now everything is grayed out. Perfect. So we got the basics set up there. So if we change this to, let's just test this out, to our single frame, now we see it just chucks that off, the frame number. So what we can do now is copy the right, go inside here and paste relative reference, and then go up a level again, copy the read, and then go to our read, paste relative reference, there we go. And now it should take in what we created. We can, for example, just create a sphere. Let's save our scene, and then from here, create a, just save the disk. Let's see if it's loading it. Ah yeah, we should add that reload button. So if we go to edit parameter interface, inside here to the load, then we have this reload button, and then let's just add it on top here, so that if we go up again, we do have the option to reload. So if you go on a different frame and then hit save the disk and then click reload, then the geometry does appear. One thing that we do want to add, because like if you cache something and then you save the disk and then you have to hit reload, it's a bit annoying. So just a simple thing, what we could do is if you go here to our save to disk, under parameters, we can have a callback script, which basically executes one of these buttons, so we're just going to execute the reload. So callback script is going to be Python, so change that here, and then we're going to say Houdini object model dot PDLD, so yourself, and then get the parameter, which is called, I think it's called reload, yeah, so reload, and then dot press button, so press button, and that should be fine. And let's add this to save to disk in background, callback script, and then Python apply. And that should, if you go to a different frame and you say save to disk, it's gonna reload it. So we're not having the same issue as we had before. Cool. I think that's it so far. The only thing that I do want to add is, so let me show you this. So if you pull up our project here, I have this project hard drive where basically all my projects are living, like the folder structure. But if I would add my caches into this folder, this would just grow and explode. And so that's why I'm separating this to a different hard drive. So this could be, for example, in my case, it's not yet. I'm going to upgrade at some point. Could be an SSD, just for a quicker reading. And then for the hardcore heavy cache stuff, we can plug this into here. So what I would do here is create a new folder under my caching directory, and then call this the breach, because that's the name of the project. And then inside here, the folder BGO. And we could add this to our cache as well. So if we go into the parameter interface, let's just create another string. Where is it? String. Here we go. To the bottom, which will be called our cache directory. And then let's copy this one. And then let's call this our job. So we just grab our job variable, hit apply. And so the job is going to be $job. So if we middle mouse on this, it's going to go to our standard project directory. And then for the cache directory, we're going to set this to Python and accept. And then we're going to create an expression that will basically, so if we go here to expressions, edit expression, we're just going to basically grab the job variable and then replace this project by, if we look here, so it's not going to be projects, it's going to be storage, and then /cache, and then it's going to be the breach. So link here. So first, again, import Houdini object model, and then we're going to say our node is equals, so the same as we had before, our Houdini object model dot pwd, so grabbing itself, and then our cache storage is equals to another node that we're going to be, another parameter that we're going to be evaluating. So let's just add this quickly, parameter interface. So another toggle, and add this to the very top. And then this is going to be called, so we're going to set this to default 1, so it's on by default. And then this is going to be called cache storage, and then cache on storage, and hit apply. And let's just join that into the same row, so horizontally join the next parameter. And then we have, oops, got a typo in there. Probably already saw that. It's like I can hear you from the future screaming, "Oh, you had a typo. Stop." No, I found it. There we go. Cache on storage. So Let's grab this in here. So basically node.parameter, and which parameter do we want? We want to get the cache storage parameter, and we want to evaluate it. So eval, and now we have it basically stored into this variable here, if it's on or not. Usually it's going to be on. Sometimes you might not want to cache it there, so that's why I'm adding this option here. And so what we're going to do, if, oops, I'm switching to Vex here. So cache underscore storage is equals to 1. So basically if it's turned on, then return our node.parm, and I'm going to grab our job parameter, which is this one here. And then we want to take this one and dot evaluate it. So first grab it, and then we want to replace. And then we say what we want to replace. We want to replace projects by our storage slash cache, and then go to end, and then else, oops, else return our node.parm, and then job, and then dot eval. So basically grabbing, what we could do just to make this a bit more easy to read, is drop this up here, save this to its own variable, which we will call job directory is equals to this. And then we just say here, we can replace this entire thing because that's the same as up here, and then say job dir, and then otherwise just return the job directory. So if our cache storage parameter here is turned on, then do return our job directory replacing the projects by storage cache. And then if it's off, so if it's not equals to 1, then return our regular job directory, which we specify here. All right, let's hit apply and hope this works. Nope. All right, we got a syntax error here. Probably you've already spotted it. So let's go through this. All right, so let's try and see if we can debug this. So this is something very common that you're probably going to encounter. So first let's try and let's just uncomment all this bottom part and see if we're actually return job directory. Ah yeah, and here we already see one problem and still not working. So let's try to return cache storage. And let's see if we can get rid of this one here. Let's just really make it super simple. Okay, so we have something wrong. Ah, okay, yeah, missing the parentheses here. Okay, so now it's returning 1. Now let's try the next one, which would be the job directory. If this one is getting evaluated correctly, yes, it is. And now I guess everything else should be working. Just uncomment this, apply, perfect, almost perfect. The only thing that we want to do is change this back to our job directory. Let's see if this works. Apply. Cool. And then let's get rid of this one here. And now this should be working. So we have our job directory here. We say single frame. Not single frame. If we say cache on storage, changes back to the regular, so to this one here. And if we say cache on storage, it's just going to replace it there. So now what we want to do, last step, is last step before we turn this into an HDA, a copy parameter, and then replace this job here by relative reference to that cache directory. So here and relative reference here. And now this should be fine. So now it updates at all places. So the only thing that is left that we want to do is edit parameter interface, set the defaults again. So if we go to path create, that one is stayed the same, the single frame updated due to changing to the cache directory here. So we apply, and then we take this one here and the multi-frame, and then we take this expression here, copy that into our cache directory, paste it there, apply, and we should be good to go. All right, so now if we switch this and then we say save the disk. Now if we look into the folder structure that we created before, let me see, don't have it open yet. So under storage, cache, and then the breach, BGO, we now have this here created, simpillar 01, which is basically this one here, and then cache smoke inside the version 1, and then we have our BGO file. So that works. Obviously you would have to change this to match your setup. So if you're probably going to have different directory names, it's also going to, I think it should be the same on a Windows machine. You probably just have to replace that, this storage by your basically your drive letter. That should work basically the same way. And next thing that we're going to do is we're going to turn this into an HDA. And so what I did beforehand is I created a directory on my projects folder called dev, and then inside I have a folder called HDA. And so in here, that's what I would recommend, creating a folder that is accessible by, for example, if you're using Deadline with your laptop, you want to have the same HDAs there and you want to have them update automatically. So just create a directory for your HDAs, and then what you have to do is go into your documents folder. So basically where your Houdini preferences are, and then you have the Houdini environment. And then if you go here, open with Kate, this is just text editor, you just have to add basically the path for your HDAs to that directory. So if we go back to storage, dev HDA, and you can see here, I have a path called dev HDA, and then I set this to this path here. And then down here, I'm setting a Houdini OTL scan path, and that one is equals to $dev_HDA. So basically referencing this here. And then I could append, basically, just follow how they do it up here. So they also have variables in here. So referencing them with the $sign, and then appending different paths. For example, here I have the deadline submitter. And just, for example, if you have multiple directories, for example, for projects or for like global, just append it there. And then it will automatically scan those for newly created HDAs. So we're going to save this one here. So create digital asset. And then for the naming, this is important. And then here you can see basically how they're naming their assets. So basically with these separated by these ... Just quickly go over that. The way that I am creating it is, so basically the operator name is basically the convention that it has to follow. So in this case, it would be for my home studio. So this would be, I don't know, studio, whatever. I'm just going to call it home. And then dot the name. So if you have more people in your household that are working, this might make sense. Otherwise, you could just keep this normal. And then if we have a look here, so basically the name of the tool, and then followed by the version. So in this case, this would be then, I don't know, how would we call this? Our, just call it cacher, or something that we can find in the context. So ROP cacher, and then the version. So in this case, 1.0. I'm not going to add too many trailing version numbers. And so basically the operator label is going to be just the name. So ROP cacher, and then we're going to save this into our, so if we go to our job and then go up a directory, dev HTA, and then basically the name, which is ROP underscore cacher, and then HTA, and then the reason I'm not adding the naming here, I mean, you can do this, but it's going to save, like for each version, it's going to save a different, you would have to append the name here. But if you're just writing into the same asset, Houdini can keep track of that. I'm just going to show you in a moment how you would do that. So here, let's accept. And then I think we have our cacher ready to go. The only thing that I do want to add to the, it's like, seems like a never-ending story here, but we're going to finish at some point. So basically, the minimum inputs, just going to set that to 0, just so it's not going to complain if we're not plugging anything in. And then for the icon, I think there's one that is called SOP. What is it? File. Let me check if we can get this. So if we drop down a file, cache, whatever, and then if we go to type properties, SOP file cache. Yeah, exactly. Just going to take that. Just going to steal it, and then so if you hit apply, now the icon is going to change to something nicer. And then the other thing that we do want to change is this is something that you probably won't have to do unless you're working with Deadline. That I noticed is basically now that we have the asset, if we drop down a ROP cacher, if we go inside, everything is locked, and for some reason Deadline needs to access this node here. In the normal file cacher, it works, but as soon as you save the file cache, like I did some testing, and as soon as you save the file cacher as an own HTA, so just make a copy with it, the exact same settings, everything is the same, it's not going to be able to execute that on the farm. It's just going to keep failing, and that's why basically we have to specify an editable node, so a node that is still editable. And in that case, we just go here under editable nodes and then specify render, because that is here. If you look inside, that's the name of the cache node, and we want to have that editable. I think that's it for this part here. Input output, I don't think we have to and we could just add, this is just basically label, so we could say cache me and then you get this. I mean, just for basically here it says cache me and then it says you get this. Don't have to do that really. The only thing that we will be doing is under scripts. This is just to complete an HTA creation process. So once this gets dropped down, we want to change its shape and the color. And so what we're going to do here is basically create a custom script. And so we want to say on created, I'm just going to copy paste this. Otherwise this lesson is going to just get endless. The other thing that we have to do is create a Python module. So we go here and we say Python module, and the Python module is going to be, oh wait, it's the other way around. So basically the Python module is going to be this, and the onCreated, it's basically, whoops, going to be this here. So let's accept that, and then let's drop down ROP cacher. Yep, there we go. And so now basically, if we jump back to the type properties here, not going to go too much into detail. I mean, you can read up on this, but basically what it does, just on creation, creates this reference module here, and then on created, we just set some parameters, and that's it. You don't have to do that. This is just an additional thing, so you get nice coloring and already have like a bit of a shape to distinguish it from other standard nodes. One last thing that we're going to do, and then I promise we're going to be done, is just show you quickly how to version this up. So basically, if you see here, I can select the version. And the way to show that is if you go under Assets and then Asset Manager, I think it is, and then Configuration, and then you can say Asset Bar here, yeah, and then Display Menu of all definitions. And I think this is just hide Asset Bar usually. And then if you set that, then you can select your version. And the reason why you would want to do that, for example, if you do an update to this, but you don't want your other scenes to break that are using an older version, is that you don't override the HDA. Because if you would do like some drastic changes to the path and stuff, then things would start to break. And that's why you would want to version up. So what you do is you go to your Asset Manager, and then in here, you search for the ROP cacher, and then here we have this one, and then we say duplicate or copy, whatever, and then this is going to be 1.1 ROP cacher, and then we have to update the path again to live in the same directory. So dev HDA, and then ROP cacher. Select this one. If you're creating a new name, just update that there, but this should be fine like this. Then update it, close. So this one is going to still stay on the, I mean, you can't see it here, but it's on the, so if I click on it first, it's going to be on the 1.0. And if I drop down another one, ROP cacher, it's going to be on the 1.1. So on the newer version. So if you would update something here, then that would be, for example, what we would do here is we could go into the, so allow editing of contents, and then type properties, and then what we would do here under, where is it, parameters, and then select all these, and then just make them invisible. This is because we don't want to see them. And then basically this is our cacher finished. So get ready to use this one and once we get started with the sim. So finally, to wrap this all up, we now, it's a bit long, but I hope you didn't fall asleep yet. But I promise this is the last bit of the technical stuff. And if you made it through it so far to create this HDA, congratulations. Next up is where we're going to start to look at Flip. So get into the interesting effects stuff. All right, cool. Thank you, and see you in the next part.